Welcome back to Riff Ram Review right here on 88.7 The Choice on KTCU. I'm Zion Trammell here with Ian Napetian and Seth Dowdle. We just talked about TCU football, but now we are going to shift into some TCU soccer. The Horned Frogs are 1-2 on the season. They opened up the 2023 campaign with a win over SMU 1-0, but have lost the last two matches to number 6 Florida State and number 8 Penn State. And that's the only goal they've scored this season thus far. But going up against some stiff competition, Ian, you are kind of the soccer guru, so let's...
He is the Manchester United fanboy. He is the voice of Texas United FC.
Yes.
Dallas, not it. Texas United FC, USL League 2.
There you go, Seth.
That's my guy right there.
Okay, that's right. So... Ian, let's talk about TCU Soccer a little bit. They are 1-2, and they are currently out of the top 25 rankings, and you seem to have a strong opinion about this, so let's talk about it. Why, and are they not in the top 25, and do you agree with that?
Yeah, simple answer is no. I
putting his foot down.
Yeah, I mean, I learned this just a few minutes before our show started here tonight at 6 o'clock, and I mean... I'm honestly pretty astounded that TCU women's soccer did not rank in the top 25. Now, kind of just giving a brief overview of the season, TCU kicked off their season off with a win, like you said, Zion, 1-0 over SMU. That was a big win for the team, especially against SMU, kind of the noisy neighbors here in the DFW Metroplex. So that was huge for TCU. I know there were a bunch of fans out there at that game. And then after that, TCU goes on the road to play number 6 Florida State. And Florida State is a really quality side. You know, it's not that TCU played a poor game. It's just that Florida State capitalized on those opportunities. And I mean, Florida State in the second half, I mean, they went into halftime tied 0-0, and then second half, Florida State just started to run away with it. They scored 2 goals in quick succession, and that's just when the wheels kind of fell off for TCU. And then they go on the road to Penn State, number 8 Penn State at that, and lose 1-0 after conceding a goal in the 77th minute. It's been a tough start to the season. Losing 2 out of your first 3, that's definitely not what you want if you're, Eric Bell and this TCU women's soccer team. Because for women's soccer, you were ranked number 9 overall heading into the season from those preseason polls, and so that's huge to start the season like that. But then you have to back it up, and it's not that the girls haven't backed it up; it's just that they've come up against some really tough opponents.
If I may, I want to talk about the Florida State game a little bit. My eyes were on this, were very limited, but I did see something. I believe this was in the second half, maybe in the first half. You can correct me if I'm wrong here, Ian. But pretty violent kind of game. There was some yellow cards handed out. I heard, now I did not see this, and this is hearsay, but you can back me up. If this is actually what happened, that there was some horse collar tackling that went on that resulted in some cards being handed out.
Yeah. I mean, this game against Florida State a couple of weeks ago is definitely their most physical by any means. It was on a hot, super humid Sunday night, and both teams really went at it. I mean, tackles were flying in from the very offset of the game, and it continued like that for the full 90 minutes. And I mean, this, for a team like TCU that, TCU doesn't really have the size, but they've got a lot of players that know how to put in a solid tackle, and this team is incredibly fit. So you see them running around on the field left and right all over the field and just kind of gaining mileage and making tackles. But no, it was a really physical game to say the least.
Reminds me of that in season 3 of Ted Lasso with AFC Richmond, where when they go up against Nate's team and they just start playing super physical and tackling and just doing the absolute worst thing, like literally selling the game. I'm watching the show and I'm like, y'all are not going to win now. Like, what are y'all doing?
If this doesn't tell you the extent of Zion and I's soccer knowledge, it is like very small. Like the references that we have are all going to be to a fictional show where an American coaches an English football team that it does not exist.
Well, let's just start off by saying Ted Lasso is a fantastic show, regardless of how ridiculous it might seem.
Save it for the Ted Lasso podcast.
Yeah. There you go, Zion. But anyways, I mean, kind of getting back to the point at TCU, right? in terms of, and sorry, answering your question about why they're not in the top 25, I mean, I don't really have any words for why they're not. They played against a number 6 seeded team and a number and a number 8 ranked team, and it's, they weren't two horrible losses either. It's not like TCU played, a poor sloppy game, and you're just like, yeah, that's not worthy of staying in the top 25. You played 2 games against 2 top 10 opponents, and going into the game against Penn State, TCU had only dropped to 16th, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. And so then to drop more than 9 places out of the top 25 was pretty obscure.
And if I may, from my limited perspective here, play devil's advocate, maybe kind of vouch for voters here, maybe. Perhaps they are a little leery, and Ian, maybe you can touch on this, on the lack of scoring production that TCU has offered so far.
Yeah, and that's really exactly the problem. I mean, TCU has a lot of returning players in the midfield and defense, and they've been really solid at the back and in that midfield, but it's the attack where they're really struggling, and that can probably most obviously be pointed out by the fact that Messiah Bright is no longer with the team. She got drafted by the Orlando Pride this summer, and she scored so many goals for the team last year. And see, the thing with Messiah Bright is that she was tall and she was physical and she was quick, and it's not something that TCU really has in abundance, even when Messiah Bright was there. But at least with her there, you had that type of presence. And right now, there really just isn't that presence there up top, and it's definitely being seen on from some of these past results.
Well, what is the schedule looking like? Is it kind of now at a point where maybe there's some relief? You're a very tough non-conference schedule so far. SMU rivalry game tensions are high, and then Florida State and Penn State. UAB next, if I'm correct. Right?
Yeah. So tomorrow night at 7:00, it'll be against University of Alabama at Birmingham.
The Blazers.
Quite a mouthful. The Blazers,
the
exactly.
Tide.
Yeah, not the Crimson Tide. But, yeah, that'll be against UAB tomorrow night. And then after that, they play Sunday against Texas A&M, excuse me.
That'll be a good one.
That'll be a good match for sure. I'm definitely looking forward to the Texas A&M matchup. I think, it's a good test after University of Alabama. At Birmingham, I should say, UAB.
Yeah.
But no, I mean their schedule is going to even out right now. They definitely had a tough first 3 games, especially. I mean, this was the first time TCU had lost at least 2 of its first 3 games since 2015. So wow. TCU losing 2 of their first 3 in any season is not really known to man, especially from this generation of soccer fans and Horned Frog soccer fans. So.
Would you say TCU, I mean, I think it's almost good that they play these top 10 teams. Would you still say that they are the best team in the Big 12, or would you say there's another team that could climb up the ladder here?
I mean, I think TCU is definitely one of the strongest teams. I think TCU has the most depth in the Big 12. I think that's that. Mm-hmm. I would definitely say that. I mean, Texas is still solid.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, that's the thing with the Big 12 is that every single year there's a couple new teams that pop up on the radar and just put together a really solid season. And that's also the thing is that women's soccer, you play so many non-conference games before actually getting into it. It's like come the Big 12 season, you're already in full gear. You're not even thinking really, hey, this is a Big 12 game. Like you've had so many big matches already, especially this season with TCU. But they'll definitely look to turn it around. I know Eric Bell is definitely gonna be looking to pick up all 3 points tomorrow night, and I'm excited for the team to hopefully get back on track this season. So,
are there any back to, and kind of piggybacking off Zion's question here? Are there any of the 4 new Big 12 members that kind of say, hey, I'm excited to see TCU play that kind of squad? On top of my head, BYU comes to mind.
Yeah, BYU's 4-0 right now, so they've had a pretty good start. And Houston and Texas Tech are also undefeated.
Yeah, so Texas Tech is definitely going to be a contender at the end of the season. I feel like. I think if I'm not mistaken, last season they were as well. But yeah, with BYU coming in, BYU was picked the favorite to win the Big 12 this season. Okay. So. That's definitely huge for a new team coming into that, and coming into the Big 12 conference. But No, I mean, this TCU team, they've got veterans, they've got the staff, they've got the depth to go far this season. I mean, they've made it to the Sweet 16 round 3 seasons in a row, and they'll look to do it again this year, but they just got to turn things around pretty soon or else things might get dire. So,
yeah, the scoring is obviously that's the name of the game. You can't win a match without scoring a goal. That's the kind of one thing that I would look to see improve, hopefully with experience and time, because if these are younger players that are up on the attack right now for TCU, and you would think, and Ian, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but with time, that just like anything else, like the experience and like the getting those jitters out early on, especially against those really tough teams, you kind of settle in.
Oh no, exactly right, and that's the thing, I mean, some of these could be the early jitters. Some of it could just be, look, it's taking a little more time than it used to get all the girls to find that chemistry together. Now, I can't exactly point to why that might be the case, but it's natural, right? Sometimes things just aren't working in a team, right? Again, I'll go back to it and harp on it however much I need to, but Messiah Bright played such a big role last season, and not having a player like her that can make runs and check in and move defenders, it completely kind of creates your team to have a much more one-dimensional kind of look to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Ian, I kind of wanted to ask you a little bit of like, it's not off topic. It's a little off topic with TCU, but I was curious, like for you growing up, who kind of like inspired you with soccer a little bit? Like who was kind of your inspiration, and who do you look to now, like as a guy you kind of look up to?
We're just going to grill you, Ian, until eventually we're going to dig down deep enough to where this is not a service level soccer conversation, and we're getting down in your deepest, darkest fears about Manchester United.
Yeah. Well, so, I mean, getting into soccer, I mean, I didn't know any players when I first got into soccer. It's kind of that thing that my parents took me to so they can drop me off, and, I just kind of play. Yeah. But then, I gravitated towards Manchester United, and the one player that I just absolutely loved and everyone else loved was Wayne Rooney. I mean, Wayne Rooney was and is a legend of the game. Played a lot of time with Manchester United, played a few years with Everton at the start of his career and at the back end, and then came to the MLS to play with DC United. But I mean, he was the one for me that I just loved watching, and that's kind of what drew me to the game. I mean, he was a forward, I was a midfielder and defender, so I also admired him scoring goals and things like that, because me running around the field a little heavy on the weight, I couldn't really put the ball in the back of the net too much.
I call him bald-headed Rooney.
Bald-headed Rooney?
He is bald, right? Am I thinking of the right guy?
Yeah. I mean, his hair receded at a pretty young age.
Well, I admire him for that. He, that takes resilience to go out there and be a really big popular guy.
Resilience,
in English soccer, and then you have to go out on the pitch every single day, and you're like, wow, all these people are staring at the top of my big bald head.
Yeah, you can't, like in baseball, you can't hide it with a hat, like.
Or a helmet or anything like that.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? He was making millions scoring with that big bald head.
Well, that's what I'm telling you. He took advantage of his big bald head and how amazing it is. This has gone off the rails quickly.
It has. But yeah, Wayne Rooney was there, for me. I like to see him score goals. But yeah, I mean, anyways, getting back to TCU though, they will turn around. I have no doubt about that. Eric Bell has been here. I think he's entering his 13th season as head coach of this team with his assistant coach. Ryan Higginbotham, and so I mean they know what they're doing, and yeah, I definitely think that they can turn it around, but they got to go through UAB tomorrow, and then they got Texas A&M on Sunday.
Big games coming up for TCU Soccer. It's gonna be fun to watch this team as they develop, and hopefully they can get it going, and we can get back to TCU Soccer that we know and love.
Yeah, so we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about TCU volleyball, and later on in the show, we'll be talking about the NCAA Week 1 football schedule, as well as Major League Baseball as we get closer to the postseason, and NFL talk as well. So stay tuned. Lots to cover here on Riff Ram Review right here on KTCU The Choice.